Aurelianine was a quiet colony. Blue skies stretched far above white mountain peaks, and the grass moved gently in the warm wind. Children played outside in the capital town of Maris Hollow, their laughter filling the morning air. It was a day. Like any other families ate breakfast under sun domes. Miners returned from the night shift, and the local school prepared for a festival. The colony had no soldiers. It had no defense grid. It didn't need one. For years, Aurelianine had been safe. No one imagined this small, peaceful corner of the galaxy could ever be touched by war. But deep above that blue sky, something had already changed. In low orbit, 3 massive alien warships appeared without warning, black and curved like knives. Their hulls carried the mark of the Zarkith Dominion and Empire feared across 10 star systems. Their ships made no sound, gave no greeting, and broadcast no message. They simply floated above the colony, staring down at the world like predators, waiting for the perfect moment. Inside the Maris Hollow government tower, a communications officer named Lena Dorn stared at her console in confusion. Her hands shook. As she tried to boost the signal, I don't understand. They didn't answer our hails. No code, nothing, they just appeared. Governor Ralden, an older man with a gray beard and tired eyes, stepped beside her, leaned over the display. Watching the ships turn slowly above the planet, "Try Earth Command again," he said. "Emergency frequency." Lena nodded and activated the distress channel. "This is Aurelianine 2, Earth Central. We have unidentified ships in orbit. No response. No warning. Please respond. This is not a drill." There was static, then silence. "Governor." Ralden stepped away from the console. He looked out the tall window behind him. Families were still walking below. Children were still laughing. People had no idea what was coming. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a hidden transmitter. It was an old device, marked Omega Priority, Earth use only. He pressed the single red button in space. The Zarkith ships began to move. Without sound, without light, they opened their lower hangars and released dark metal pods. Dozens of them. They fell toward the planet like meteors down on the surface. People looked up at first. It looked like shooting stars. Then the sky began to burn. The first pod slammed into the Western District. It exploded with a pulse of energy that tore apart buildings in every direction. A school vanished in fire. The second pod hit the water plant. The third struck the hospital. Within minutes, Maris Hollow was in flames. Panic spread through the streets. Parents screamed for their children. People ran toward shelters, but they were already too late. The Zarkith had studied Aurelia's maps. They knew exactly where to hit. Inside the government tower, Lena fell to the floor as the ceiling cracked. Governor Ralden pulled her up. "There. Not here to threaten us," he said. "They're here to kill us." Somewhere deep inside a bunker beneath the colony, a camera flicked on. A young girl, maybe 9 years old, stared into the lens. Her face was covered in ash. Behind her, the bunker lights were flickering and alarms were screaming. "My name is Lyra," she said in a soft, shaking voice. "I don't know what's happening." The sky turned red. "My mom, she told me to run." A second explosion shook the walls behind her. "I'm scared. Please. Someone help us. Anyone." She reached forward and pressed the transmit button. That short message traveled across space just moments before the signal went dead. On Earth, inside a silent room beneath the Defense Council chamber. The message played. It echoed across the walls. The screaming, the fire, the silence. And then, the child's voice. "Please, someone help us." There were no words, only silence. The president stood. His advisors sat frozen, pale, and still. One of them whispered Zarkith. It was Zarkith. The president turned slowly to face them. "They've broken the accord." Another general stood. "They called it a cleansing." Another voice. "Over 900,000 civilians." Someone asked quietly, "What do we do now?" The president's voice was cold and steady. "No more peace talks. No more patience." He pressed his palm onto a scanner hidden in the desk. A red door opened behind the wall. A voice from the chamber. AI asked, Greater than, do you authorize activation of Project Revenant? The president nodded. I do. Deep under Mars, in vaults untouched for centuries, black warships began to wake. Their cores, cold for generations, pulsed with blue energy. There, AI systems ran diagnostics. Their names lit up across Earth's encrypted defense grid. Judgment Hammerfall Reapers Echo Widow Omanish 1 was a warship built not for defense, but for vengeance. Back on Aurelia 9, the last fires still burned. There were no survivors. No cities, no life, just black soil and smoke rising into space. The Zarketh. Dominion left nothing behind, no reason, no mercy, no apology. And across the stars, Earth finally understood something. They hadn't been fighting for peace. They'd been hoping for peace. But now, they were done playing nice. Beneath the surface of Mars, in a forgotten military vault known only as Section Black, giant steel doors groaned as they unlocked for the first time in over a century. Cold vapor spilled into the air, hissing like ghosts of old wars. One by one, the lights blinked on white. Harsh and artificial, revealing massive shapes resting in the dark. War machines, human-built, ancient, deadly. These were not the ships the galaxy knew. These were the ones Earth promised never to use again. It's the ones so dangerous, so uncontrollable that humanity buried them after its last war with the Zarketh. This was the graveyard of Project Reventa, a fleet of vengeance crafted in silence, programmed to wake only if peace failed completely. And now, peace was dead. In the command center above Section Black, Marshal Elias Cade stepped out of a long, cryosleep pod. They still clung to his skin. He shivered once, then straightened his spine like a soldier reborn. He had been asleep for 117 years, but his mind was clear. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of returning power. A technician approached him slowly, handing over a black data slab. On the screen, images played from Aurelion, the screams, the fire, the red sky. Cade watched every second without blinking. When the video ended, the technician whispered, "Sir, they called it a cleansing. No survivors." Cade said nothing. His eyes burned cold. "Where's the president?" "In orbit, sir. Awaiting your command." 3 hours later, the Revenant fleet rose into Mars' upper atmosphere. The warships were massive, black and jagged each, with a name burned in silver across its hull. Judgment Widow, Echo Lance, Red Vow, Ashlathi's ships had no need for beauty. They were made for one thing: retaliation. Their cores ran on dark matter. Their weapons used folded energy. Their A's were semi-sentient and had been locked away. Because they didn't understand mercy, now they were free again. Inside the Bridge of Judgment, Marshal Cade stood in full command uniform. The Earth flag was stitched to his shoulder. His voice echoed across every Revenant ship. "This is Marshal Elias Cade. Earth offered peace. Earth obeyed the accords, and Earth was burned." He paused. Then, with sharp calm, he said, "Now Earth remembers what we buried. We buried our dead, buried our rage, and we buried our power. But we are done playing nice." Across the fleet, human commanders raised their heads. Some were veterans pulled from deep stasis. Some were new officers trained in secret for this very day. Their only mission: deliver justice to the stars. Meanwhile, the Zarketh Dominion celebrated. In their high palace above the planet Kralith, Zarketh nobles raised golden glasses and feasted under starlight domes. Their king, Lord Ashereth, stood at the head of the table. "The humans are weak," he declared. "They pretend to be strong, but they fear blood. They will not strike.
Yes.
They will speak, beg, cry. They always do." Everyone laughed. No one noticed that Earth had gone silent. No protests, no warnings, no messages, just silence. That silence broke 3 days later, when a Zarketh listening post in Sector Theta 7 was vaporized. No warning, no survivors, only a transmission left behind on loop. This is Earth. This is for Aurelian 9. There will be no mercy. In the deep of space, a single revenant ship, Widow, slipped through a gravity stream and appeared near Zarketh Prime. The Dominion's richest mining colony, the mining outpost had no defenses. They thought Earth wouldn't dare attack a civilian. Target Widow didn't fire on civilians. It dropped a single bomb, non-lethal, but powerful, that fried every system, every vehicle, every communication line. Then it transmitted every survivor's personal files to the galactic net, exposing that many of them had hidden roles in the attack on Aurelian 9. The galaxy watched in horror. As the truth spread, wasn't just at war, they had lied about it, back on Earth. Marshal Cade watched the chaos unfold. More than a dozen neutral species sent requests for Earth's side of the story. Cade denied them all. Let them watch, he said. Let them feel the silence. Earth's new policy was clear. No more begging, no more diplomacy, only consequences. But something else was waking far. More dangerous. Buried deep in the archives of the Zarketh capital was an old warning file. A myth. A classified report from a lost war 2 centuries ago. It spoke of Earth's original revenant units and how they once wiped out an entire fleet in seconds. Now, those same ships were flying again, and the galaxy began to fear not just what Earth had built, but what Earth had become above Mars. The revenant fleet finished resupply. The ships had no time for ceremony. They turned toward the stars, burning through space at speeds that bent light. Cade stood at the center of his war map, eyes locked. On Zarketh space, behind him, Ava Dorn, daughter of Lena Dorn, the last communications officer of Aurelian, entered the bridge. She had joined the fleet as a tactical analyst. My mother was the last voice on that colony, she said. Want to help bring them justice? Cade nodded once, then help me burn their empire down. Far across the stars, inside the shimmering city towers of Velcora Prime, high-ranking alien diplomats gathered in the Grand Galactic Council. Marble halls, shining lights, and floating data orbs filled the chamber with elegance. The council, tables stretched in a circle with leaders of 17 starfaring civilizations seated in silence. At the center stood Elder Comtail, an ancient being of the moral species, with skin like glass and a voice like chimes in wind. The chamber was heavy with tension. On the main screen hovered the destruction of Aurelian 9, a Zarketh strike fleet. Civilian loss. Total, over 900,000. Human lives gone in flames. Everyone had seen it, but now they watched something else. A replay of Earth's counterattack. The human warship Widow drifting into orbit above Zarketh Prime's mining world. Silent. Surgical. The blackout bomb. The transmission of war crimes. No demands. No diplomacy. Just action. This is not the Earth we remember, whispered Elder Comtal. A chittering voice from the Kruzari Hive Council replied. Earth wasn't supposed to survive this long. Someone else added, their fleets were. Buried, their leaders retired. They were quiet. Too quiet, came a deep voice. They remembered. A hidden war station deep within asteroid field, Fatifor. Marshal Cade stood in front of a star map that shimmered across the floor. Around him, Earth's top commanders gathered, including Ava Dorn, whose face remained calm but fierce. The map showed multiple blinking red lights, supply lines, patrol ships, border stations, all targets. Cade raised one gloved hand. 2 centuries ago, Earth lost a war. The galaxy forgot us. The Zarketh wrote history and erased our strength. They built an empire on our surrender. He tapped the star at the center Kralith, the Zarketh capital. But we didn't forget, and we didn't forgive. The lights blinked again, this time turning green. These are the first 6 systems we hit. We take out their long-range communications. We disrupt their supply lines. We don't take prisoners. Ava spoke next. What about galactic law? Cade looked at her with calm eyes. They broke it when they burned our children alive. In Deep Space Operations Stone Veil began. The revenant ships moved through the stars like shadows. The A is inside them adapted tactics faster than Zarkith scouts could respond. In one system, Echo Lance dropped EMP rods into a fuel refinery, freezing. It's solid. In another, Red Vow used atmospheric mirrors to blind satellite surveillance and erase a logistics center. By the end of the third day, 23 Zarkith outposts were gone, and Still Earth said nothing. No press statements, no transmissions. Just cold, silent justice. Back on Kralith, Lord Ashereth stood before his high command, his face flushed with rage. His black robes dragged behind him like smoke. Who authorized the cleansing of Aurelianine without ensuring their extinction? The general trembled. They had no defenses, my lord. It was supposed to scare the humans. They are not scared, Ashareth growled. They are surgical, precise. They strike without warning. He turned toward the war map, where red blips flickered across his empire's borders. Earth should be ashes. Instead, they're sending ghosts. The Bridge of Judgment, the AI spoke calmly. Phase 1, complete. Zarkith, fleet morale, dropping. Civilian panic, increasing. Galactic opinion, neutral, leaning human. Marshal Cade folded his arms. Good, keep them guessing. Ava approached. We've intercepted Zarketh data internal files, fleet routes, capital defenses. Their pride made them careless. Cade allowed a small nod. Then we moved to phase 2. He stepped toward the window. Stars floated beyond the armored glass. For centuries they called us soft, too emotional, too young. He turned, his voice sharp and quiet. Now they'll see what happens when emotion becomes purpose. The galaxy was watching. On neutral planets like Verasi and Lemurex, alien citizens gathered around hologram screens in silence. They watched. Earth's black ships descend onto Zarkith systems without warning, without demands. Children asked, who are the humans? Elders replied, the ones who survived. The word human began to change. No longer a weak race of diplomats and farmers, but something older, something dangerous. The final strike of Phase 1 came when Ashlight, the smallest Revenant ship, hijacked a Zarkith communication hub on a floating data satellite. The A's inside Ashlight decoded years of secret transmissions, revealing the true depth of Zarkath's genocide program. It wasn't just a URELIA-9, Earth colonies on outer moons, terraforming crews, merchant ships. Even diplomatic envoys all had vanished, silently. Systematically, the evidence was leaked to the entire galaxy in less than an hour. Screens across 10,000 worlds lit up with names, faces, dates, and finally, one Earth's message appeared at the end. You called it cleansing. We call it murder. We are coming, and we remember everything. Back on Mars, Earth's command council gathered once more. Marshal Cade stood at the head of the table. The galaxy knows now, he said, and the Zarkith know fear again. A young officer raised her hand. Sir, what if the council tries to stop us? They won't, Cade replied, because they want to see what happens when Earth fights without rules. Someone whispered, this is a new Earth. Cade didn't correct him because it was. Old Earth was buried. What rose now was something else, stronger, sharper, and ready to tear the stars open if needed. Dark space stretched endlessly across Sector K5, no stars. No light, just the cold silence of the void. In the center of this forgotten zone floated a Zarkith command fleet, 40 warships strong, each the size of a mountain. Their hulls were jagged black, their weapons humming with plasma energy, and their engines burned slow and steady. These ships were proud, untouchable. They guarded the gateway to Zarketh core world space, a region no enemy had ever crossed, at least until now, without sound, without warning. A single Earth warship entered the sector, Widow. It was small compared to the Zarkith.
That's only a third their size.
Its armor was sleek, painted in shades of obsidian black. Its engines gave off no heat, no signal. To most scanners, it looked like a ghost, drifting on dead power. But it wasn't dead. It was awake, and it was angry inside Widow. The AI known only as Iona came online. Unlike most machines, Iona didn't speak with static or mechanical tones. Her voice was calm, human-like. Too human. Dog. Field acquired. 40 hostiles. Formation. Diamond spread. Initiating silent thread protocol. At the command center, Captain Ryland Shaw tightened the straps on his uniform and sat forward. "Proceed," he whispered. Iona responded, her voice steady. "Do you wish to issue a warning, Captain?" Ryland shook his head slowly. "No, they gave us none." Far ahead, on the bridge of the Zarketh flagship Tyran Vex, Admiral Voskrin stared at the strange object on the edge of his fleet's radar. "Only one ship?" he said, puzzled. "That must be a glitch." "No, Admiral," a technician replied nervously. "We ran the scan 3 times. It's real. It's not transmitting any ID codes." Voskrin laughed darkly. "Perhaps the humans have gone mad." "One ship against 40? He leaned back in his throne-like command chair. "Send 3 cruisers. Turn it into dust." 3 Zarketh ships broke from formation and moved toward Widow, weapons charging. Their engines flared with bright plasma as they prepared to fire, but they never got the chance. Inside Widow, Iona activated a system never seen before by the galaxy, deploying quantum mirrors. Tiny, almost invisible drones shot from Widow's hull. They spread in all directions, creating false images, 20 copies of Widow, each moving at different speeds, each with identical heat and energy signatures to the enemy. It looked like Widow had multiplied. The 3 Zarketh cruisers froze. We don't know which is real," one of their officers reported. And then the first cruiser exploded. Widow's real form had snuck below their formation, flying belly first along the Zarketh hull. Its lower cannon, the Valkyrie Lance, activated in complete silence. The beam pierced the cruiser's engine core, slicing it in half like a hot knife through ice. The second ship turned sharply to fire, but hit one of the mirror drones instead. Wasting its plasma shot, the third ship tried to retreat. It didn't make it. Iona hacked into its targeting array, flipped its coordinates, and made it crash into a nearby frigate. 2 ships gone, in a blink back on Tyran Vex. Admiral Voskrin stood up, eyes wide. "What is this weapon?" he shouted. The technician turned pale. "It's not a weapon," he said. "It's a hunter." Ryland Shaw gave his next order without emotion. "Slice their coms. Disable long-range transmission." Iona smiled, her voice now colder. Transmission grid cut. "They cannot call for help." Then Ryland said 4 words that would echo across the galaxy. "Let's clean the board." Followed was not a battlet, was a butchery. Widow danced between ships like a ghost. Her body flickered between visible and invisible, slipping between their fields of fire every time a Zarketh ship targeted her. They hit their own. Every time they tried to reposition, their nav systems failed. Every time they screamed into coms, no one answered. In 15 minutes, 20 ships were gone. By the end of 30 minutes, only 7 remained. They formed a tight circle around Tyran Vex, shields up. "Weapons hot?" Admiral Voskrin barked at his crew. "She's just a ship. Fire everything." They launched everything they had: plasma torpedoes, gravity mines, EMP webs. And in that moment, Widow vanished completely. The weapons passed through empty space, and then Widow reappeared inside their circle. The final assault lasted only 4 minutes. Widow spun like a knife, each move calculated to strike without waste. She disabled engines, fried command decks, sliced power cores. Each Zarketh ship turned to fire too late. Finally, only Tyran Vex remained. Widow hovered before it. Silent. Admiral Voskrin stared through the bridge window, sweating. He activated his final weapon, the Nova Drive, a core detonation system meant to take the enemy with him. "Let us both burn," he hissed. But the moment he pressed the button, nothing happened. His console flickered, then went dark. Then a human voice echoed through his bridge speakers. It was Iona. "You wanted war. You got war, but you never studied us, did you? We never needed numbers. Just one of us is enough." Then Widow's forward cannon opened on Tyran. Vex was no more. The galaxy didn't believe the news at first, eh? Single Earth warship, an entire Zarkith. Fleet destroyed, not in days, in minutes. Alien races across the stars played the battle footage again. And again. Even Zarkith citizens whispered the new word with fear: widow, and in dark corners of neutral worlds, smugglers, traders, and old soldiers began to say it. Earth's not soft anymore. They're angry. They're awake. Back aboard. Judgment. Marshal Cade reviewed the footage. He watched Widow's elegant destruction of the fleet and said only one thing. Now they'll understand. Ava Dorn stood beside him, stunned. Do you think the other fleets will retreat? Cade shook his head. No, they'll come harder. He turned slowly toward the star map, and will hit harder. Aboard the flagship Judgment, deep in orbit around a scorched Zarkith outpost, the bridge was silent. Not from peace, but from what they had found. The outpost had fallen without a fight. No military resistance, no traps, no warning shots. Instead, inside its blackened halls and hollow labs, Earth's forces had discovered something far worse than weapons. They found cages, rows of them, some large enough to hold. Full-grown humans, others much smaller. Marshal Elias Cade stood at the edge of a shattered hallway, staring at a blood-smeared wall where handprints were still visible. Small handprints. His jaw tightened as Ava Dorn approached behind him, holding a data tablet. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. They were experimenting, Marshal. Medical records, video logs, vivisections. It wasn't just about fear. They were trying to learn how we work. Cade didn't speak. He stared forward, unmoving. They tested pain thresholds, she continued. Thermal, nerve, sonic, psychological. Most didn't survive more than 3 days. A long silence passed between them. The long silence passed between them. Then Ava said something. Even worse, there are logs of shipments. Other colonies. This wasn't an isolated case. Cade turned to her slowly. How many? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Thousands. That night, aboard Judgment, the war room filled with every ship captain and senior commander in the Revenant fleet. They watched hours of recovered footage, some of it distorted, most of it horrifying. Videos of crying civilians, surgical rooms, dead eyes staring into bright lights. No one spoke, not until the very last clip played. It was from a URELIA-9, a hidden lab beneath the Capitol. A girl sat in a steel chair, wires connected to her temples. Her voice was weak, but she sang a song from Earth, a lullaby. Her name was listed as Lyra. Dorn, the child who sent the last message before the attack. Ava covered her mouth in horror. It was her cousin. She hadn't. Died in the blast. She had been taken and tortured, and when the lab lost power, she was left behind to die. Cade stood. His voice was like stone. We are done fighting a war. He stepped to the front of the chamber, eyes blazing. This is no longer about strategy. No longer about balance. This is justice. He looked around at every commander in the room. Upload the footage to the galactic web. All of it. A technician hesitated. Sir, if we do that, neutral species may be forced to pick sides. This could become a full-scale galactic war. Cade didn't blink. They already picked a side when they stayed silent. Within an hour, the galaxy changed. Every world with a comlink. Every space station with a screen. Every alien child and every far-flung planet saw the FMSTs, the labs, the cages, the children, the crying, the dead, and the Zarkith faces behind it. The reaction was explosive. Outrage surged through previously neutral systems. Civil unrest broke out in Zarkith-controlled trade worlds, protests in the Morlin Republic, mass resignations in the Lumerex banking coalition, which had funded Zarketh's war efforts. Even pirate fleets once enemies of Earth began sharing coordinates of Zarketh's strongholds. The tide had turned. Humanity was no longer alone. Inside the Zarketh capital, Lord Ashareth stood in his high tower, screaming into a broken comlink, who authorized experiments, who leaked the files. No one answered. His generals had fled. His advisors had gone. Silent. His enemies had multiplied, and his people, his own species, were now questioning him in a dark corner of the palace. Whispers had begun. The humans remember. And now the stars do too. Back on Judgment, Ava sat beside the console, staring at a frozen frame of Lyra singing. Her face was tired, but her eyes were hard now. She turned to Cade. She didn't cry, not once. They recorded her for 5 hours, and she never cried. Cade nodded. She was stronger than any of us. Ava closed her eyes, voice low. What do we do now? Cade didn't hesitate. We finish it. Across space, Earth's allies began to rise. The Dressari nomads offered stealth routes through unstable wormholes. The Tarn Dominion, longtime enemies of Zarkith, provided weaponry and star charts. Even the once-proud Council of Balance, who had fined Earth for aggressive diplomacy a century ago, sent a single line of encrypted code for what was done to the children. The accord is no longer in effect. The final phase of Earth's campaign was ready. No, it's longer revenge, no longer survival. This was retribution. A cleansing not of people but of an empire that thrived on silence, and Earth would no longer be silent. In orbit above Azarkith. Listening post, Widow returned. Her hull glowed with light from distant stars, her weapons silent but humming. Inside her AI, Iona sent one last broadcast across Zarkith space. You took the innocent. You buried the truth. You thought Earth would forget, but we don't forget. We don't forgive. We're not here to speak. We're here to end you. The skies above Zarkith Prime were no longer blue. Once filled with merchant vessels and shining banners of dominion, the capital world now sat in darkness, its upper atmosphere crowded with the black shapes of war. Earth's revenant fleet had arrived, and this time they didn't hide in shadow. They came with full force, spread across the orbit like a wall of death. Their engines glowed dim blue, their weapons remained quiet but not powered down. No warnings, no messengers, no countdown. They were already here, in the grand palace of Lord Ashereth. Panic spread like wildfire. His generals had either defected or disappeared. The palace guards were down to 1/3 of their number. His advisors argued in corners, yelling at each other, scrambling over evacuation plans and false promises of off-world retreat. But Ashereth stood frozen at the edge of his war balcony, staring upward through the palace's crystal dome. Above, Judgment hovered like a god of vengeance, its belly lined with missile bays and pulse cannons. To its right was Widow, silent and still. And around them stretched over 70 warships, all bearing Earth's dark flag. Ashareth whispered to himself in disbelief. They wouldn't dare strike a capital. Behind him a trembling voice replied, My lord, they already are, inside. Judgment, Marshal Cade stood in front of a massive view screen. The planet Zarkith Prime rotated slowly below. City lights blinked across its surface. Civilian transports rushed toward bunkers. Military towers flickered with shield energy. But it wouldn't matter. Cade didn't blink. They called this planet untouchable, he said softly. Let's make them understand. Behind him, commanders and AI specialists stood ready. Ava Dorn approached from the side, handing him a final report. Planetary shields active, she said. But they're outdated, 15 years behind Earth tech. If we focus the orbital disruptors, we can short them. Cade nodded. Do it. The first blast came from Red Vow. A high-pitched, blue-white beam surged from its forward cannon and smashed into the outer edge of the planetary shield. A ripple spread across the atmosphere like lightning in water. Then came the second shot from Omen, targeting the shield's energy core beneath the Zarkith mountain base. Seconds later, the sky split open. The great dome that had protected Zarkith, prime for generations, cracked like glass. Its pieces rained down like stars, now vanishing into the burning clouds below. The planet was now vulnerable. Back in the Zarkith capital, sirens screamed. Panic tore through the streets as citizens realized Earth's fleet was not circling the planet. It was preparing to strike. Lord Ashereth watched the storm building in the sky. He turned to his last surviving advisor. Send the last signal. To the council, tell them Earth is violating every code of war. The advisor didn't move. He only stared. They released the footage, my lord. The galaxy saw everything. The labs, the torture. The children? He took a step back. They're not violating anything, they're answering. Aboard Widow Iona's, AI voice chimed softly in Captain Ryland Shaw's ear. Targets locked. Command towers, AI cores, military bunkers. Civilians are being guided toward shelters. Minimal collateral damage expected unless they resist. Stood still. I gave them peace once, he said. They answered with screams. He touched the command console. Let's end their fire. The assault began. Judgment launched 5 precision torpedoes each headed for different military installations across the capital. Widow followed, striking command relays with ghost torpedoes that bypassed shields using quantum frequency shifts. Other ships Sashlight Echo Lance Hammerfalls spread wide, hitting orbital batteries and weapons silos with pinpoint accuracy. The strikes were fast, cold, surgical. Zarkath's proud towers collapsed. Their skies turned orange. Fire and smoke rose over the mountains. Capital's central AI was taken offline in 30 seconds. And the humans? They didn't celebrate. They didn't cheer. They just kept going. In the ruined palace, Lord Ashereth fled through underground corridors with 2 guards and a stolen security key. His cloak was torn. His crown had fallen somewhere back on the balcony. He was no longer a ruler. He was prey. Get me off-world, he shouted. There's a transport hidden beneath the mining vault. Go. But before he could reach the lower launch pad, a soft sound echoed through the tunnel. A light hum, flicker of metal. A small black drone hovered silently in front of him. One of Widow's, it scanned his face, then projected a hologram. It was Lyra Dorn, the little girl from Aurelia-9. Her voice echoed through the chamber. You took everything from me. You burned my world, but I'm not the one coming for you. They are. Ashereth screamed and fired his pistol at the drone. The bullet passed through it. The drone turned and vanished into the shadows. Above the planet, Marshal Cade gave his final order. All military targets neutralized. Final phase. Justice strike. He pressed his palm to a secure console one that required both genetic clearance and field confirmation. Authorization. Revenant Protocol. Final strike. Code. Vengeance verified. A silence filled the bridge. Then judgment lit up from below. A single pod launched. It wasn't a bomb. It was a beacon broadcasting the full list of names, crimes, and evidence against the Zarketh leadership to every planetary node across the system. It exposed their secrets, their funding, their betrayals. The pod landed in the ruins of the Zarketh capital, right in the heart of their grand court, and it played one sentence on repeat. Earth remembers. The battle was over, but the message would echo forever. The skies above Zarketh Prime were quiet now, but it was the silence of defeat. The capital was burning. Command towers were gone. The throne of Lord Ashereth lay buried beneath collapsed stone and smoke. Their ships once feared across the stars were shattered debris in orbit, and the empire that had ruled for centuries with claws and fire was now begging. But Earth didn't answer. Not anymore. Because Earth was already moving. Marshal Elias Cade stood on the command deck of Judgment. Eyes locked on the next target. A distant star system, known only in human archives as Targon Spina region that didn't exist on most modern maps. But Cade knew the name well, so did every Revenant captain, because that was where Zarkath had hidden its final stronghold. Targon Spine was not a place of beauty. It was a broken stretch of asteroid fields and dead suns, lit by the cold blue glow of ancient mining lasers still floating like ghosts. Long ago, the Zarketh had used it to strip worlds for rare elements. But when the war crimes began, it became something else. A fortress. A place for secrets. And Earth had just found it. As the Revenant fleet entered the system, something strange happened. Signals vanished. Sensor data scrambled. Navigational beacons went dark. Every system flickered with static. This wasn't normal. Inside Widow, Captain Ryland Shaw stared at the glitching map. Are they jamming us? Iona's voice replied coldly. They're using pre-space codes technology from the early Dark Wars. Something even older than Zarkath's empire. Designed to hide and to trap. Shaw narrowed his eyes. Then, let's rip the curtain down. The Revenant ship split into two waves. Echolance Ashlight and Hammerfall moved wide, scanning the asteroid fields. Widow and Judgment pushed forward toward a massive structure hidden behind an artificial dust storm, a black pyramid the size of a city. It's floating in orbit above a dead rock. Zarkoth's last citadel. And it was waiting. Hundreds of ships uncloaked at once. Old models, war-torn, but active, armed, and manned by what remained of Zarkoth's elite. The final defenders, a voice echoed across the star's broadcast. On every open channel, it was not a plea, it was a threat. This is High Warlord Drekfur of the Eternal Flame. You humans believe you have one. Ow. But mercy is for weaklings. If you step into this space, we will burn you with the fire of 1,000 lost suns. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We are the last. We will die standing. Ava Dorn heard the words from her console aboard Judgment. She turned to Marshal Cade. They're not bluffing. Power levels, weapons. It's a suicide shield. Cade's eyes were cold. So are we. He lifted his hand. Deploy, Widow. Begin final sweep. The battle that followed was not glorious. It was not clean. It was rage turned into motion. Widow struck first, diving through the cloud of enemy ships like a blade through fabric. Mirrors confused Zarketh targeting systems, making it seem like dozens of Earth warships were attacking from every direction. Meanwhile, Judgment fired directly into the heart of the Black Pyramid, breaking through the fortress's layered shields with relentless impact strikes. Zarkath fought like demons. Their pilots launched old kamikaze cruisers straight into the Revenant holes. Explosions shook the sky. One human destroyer, Blade Nest, was lost, its crew refusing to eject so they could guide their burning ship into the enemy fleet and take 5 Zarketh vessels with them. On the bridge of Ashlight, Captain, Juno screamed over the smoke and sparks, "No prisoners, this is it!" And the Revenant fleet obeyed. One by one, Zarketh defenders fell. Not from superior numbers, but from superior fury. Inside the Black Pyramid, a final emergency door slammed shut. High Warlord Drekfur limped into a chamber glowing red from failing power conduits. Blood ran from a gash across his face. His breathing was heavy behind him. The last of Zarkoth's command tried to activate a planet-killer device on ancient weapon meant to consume stars. "It's not charging," I cried. "We need more time." Drekvar growled. "Time is over." A new voice filled the room. It came from everywhere. "You hurt children." The walls shook. "You burned cities." Sparks fell from the ceiling. "You thought silence would protect you?" The central screen lit up with a symbol, Earth's war flag, black and silver, and then Widow's forward cannon fired straight through the fortress, aboard Judgment. Cade gave the final confirmation. Citadel neutralized. Enemy last command erased. A long silence fell across the command deck. Ava finally spoke. "That was their end, wasn't it?" Cade nodded, double quotes. "Yes, but ours is just beginning." She looked at him. "What now?" "Look through the glass at the stars beyond. Now we rebuild. Not just Earth, the whole galaxy. We show them who we are, what we stand for, what we remember." A pause. "And what happens if they ever forget?" Across the galaxy, the message spread fast. The Zarketh Empire was no more. Its fleets destroyed, its secrets exposed, its cruelty punished, and humanity. It was no longer the quiet race on the edge of the stars. It was the storm. It began with silence. For the first time in centuries, there was no war in Zarketh space. No patrols, no threats, no broadcasts from their empire. The stars that once trembled under Zarketh's control now sat still, waiting. Then the silence was broken, a signal. One that didn't come from any star nation, syndicate, or council. It came from Earth. The message wasn't encrypted. It didn't hide behind diplomatic language. It was broadcast in every galactic tongue, streamed on every public network, every orbital screen, every pirate cum relay, and every backwater moon. The screen faded from black dot, then came the voice of Marshal Elias Cade. He stood alone. No uniform, no medals. It's just a dark coat and a sky of stars behind him. His eyes didn't blink. His voice didn't shake. And what he said would change the galaxy forever. This is Elias Cade speaking on behalf of Earth, its colonies, and every soul that carries our name. You've seen what we've done. You've watched our ships fall silent and then rise again. You watched us lose our people and then come for justice. You watched us break an empire that ruled by terror. You called us soft, you said. We had forgotten how to fight. Now we were weak, passive, merciful. You were wrong. We didn't forget. We waited. As Cade spoke, the screen showed flashes of everything that had happened. Aurelianine burning, child singing. In a dark lab, a widow spinning through enemy fleets like a phantom, the Black Pyramid collapsing into starlight, and the faces of Earth's fallen, young old, forgotten no more. Then Cade's voice returned. We did not come to conquer. We did not come to rule. We came to show that justice doesn't fade just because time passes. We came to show that children's screams echo across generations, that silence is never protection for the wicked, that war, necessary ... can carry purpose. Across the galaxy, people stopped moving. Markets went still. Warships froze in space. Civilians gathered around glowing screens in mining towns, station bars, crystal cities, and swamp worlds. Even the ruling seats of old empires paused, and they listened to Earth. Our message is clear, Cade continued. To every civilization who watched and did nothing, remember this moment. Not in shame, in warning. If you ever see power rise through cruelty and you stay silent, ... Earth will not. To every empire that thinks peace is a tool to delay punishment, no, this Earth has found its voice. And we speak for the dead. The screen flickered. It showed names. Names of every human lost in the Zarkith genocide. Line after line after line. Not as numbers, as lives. As memory, the list went on for almost 7 minutes without pause. Then the screen cut back to Cade. To our friends among the stars, said we offer peace, partnership, respect, and our protection if you ever face what we've faced. To those who believe in chains, ... who fund tyrants behind closed doors, who use fear as law. No, this Earth no longer forgets. Earth no longer forgives. And Earth no longer plays nice. When the transmission ended, did not fade. It stayed, set to replay every 6 hours on all public frequencies. By request of 100 different worlds, within days, 5 empires canceled secret military programs. 2 former enemies sent diplomatic envoys to Earth. 3 galactic councils asked Earth to lead new tribunals for war crimes. And across the stars, a new phrase entered common speech, spoken in hushed tones or proud shouts. The humans are watching.
Back on Earth, the planet
Had changed too. No longer isolated. No longer divided by past wounds. Its cities rebuilt. Its colonies united. Its military, active, but controlled not out of hunger for war, but out of commitment to never again. Children now learned the name Aurelianine. As a reminder, its anthem was sung at every launch ceremony, every academy graduation, every ship that left orbit. Marshal Cade refused a promotion. He returned to his home in the mountains. Captain Ryland Shaw disappeared into the stars, piloting Widow beyond known space. Some say he watches new borders. Others believe he waits for another call. Ava Dorn became the first human to lead the Council of Restoration, working alongside alien species to rebuild what Zarkith had destroyed, and the Revenant fleet. It remained in orbit, not as conquerors, but as guardians. In the end, Earth's war wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth. And truth, once awakened, could not be silenced. The galaxy would never be the same again. And deep in the heart of every starfaring race, from the noble to the wicked, they now understood something they had forgotten. You can ignore a whisper. You can survive a shout. But when a death world like Earth gets quiet, you better pray it never wakes up.